Welcome back to the OIS Podcast. Today, our host, Dr. Paul Karpecki, is joined by a rising star in the ophthalmic medical field, Dr. Ashley Brissette, who is going to tell us about her transition into medicine and her exciting new venture. Let's take it away.
Thank you, OIS, for this opportunity to provide this podcast to you. And today's guest is Dr. Ashley Brissette. She's an amazingly accomplished ophthalmologist in a relatively short time. And so I'm anxious to have this interview. And you know, the real purpose of these interviews is to really go into the area of entrepreneurship. So she's a perfect guest because not only she accomplished a lot over her time, and certainly she's known at Weill Cornell as a surgeon, having done even cataract surgery on Savannah, Guthrie on the Today Show. That must have been a high pressure situation, but congratulations, as usual, pulled that off as well with, you know, flying colors and amazing results. But the background in the whole entrepreneurial cascade is kind of interesting for me, how certain people do well with this. And we'll get into the niche you're going to fill, which is that skincare line, the dermatological pure line around the eyes and all of that space. And I look forward to talking to you about that. But let's take our listeners a little bit through, Ashley, kind of your background, where you grew up, you know, where there are some early entrepreneurial influences in your life, but even just your whole path to ophthalmology and then ending up in New York, where you obviously are a great surgeon there, but also the ophthalmologist for the New York Rangers, famous people you've done surgery on. When I look at the accolades and accomplishments, I have to think you'd been at this for a few decades, and here you are really at the beginning of your career. So where did it begin?
Yeah, that's a good question. And obviously, thank you for your support as always in this field. You know, I grew up in Canada, born and raised, similar to yourself. I know we connected over that when we first met each other. So born and raised in Toronto. And then I actually went to performing arts high school growing up because, you know, I'm the only one in medicine in my family. My family is more so into business and then also really an appreciation for the arts. And as children, my parents would always take us to galleries. We were very involved in music and things like that. So I followed in my sister's footsteps, who had gone to this performing arts high school. I was pretty convinced I was going to do musical theater. And unfortunately, my father got sick and passed away when I was in high school. And that really changed the trajectory of my life. I kind of decided from that point on that although the arts were a wonderful hobby, I really wanted to have more of a career dedicated to service to others after everything my family had been through, and myself included. So then when I went to college, I actually studied anatomy and cell biology, and I went to McGill University in Montreal, had a wonderful experience there. It's such a great place to be a student and be in the French-speaking part of Canada and to practice that. And then I kind of from there decided that I wanted to go to medical school. And I did my medical school still in Canada. And when I was applying for my fellowship after my ophthalmology residency, I really wanted to have a different experience. I'm a city girl through and through. So all the fun US cities were at top of my list, and New York was really top of that. So I really made it kind of a mission of mine to get to New York City, and was lucky enough to match to fellowship at Weill Cornell, where I'm currently an assistant professor of ophthalmology, and just had a wonderful experience in the city. I always threaten to go home. I still say that I will go back to Toronto soon, but I've really been in New York now for 6 years and I'm still here. So I think New York kind of gets its hold on you, and it's hard to leave once you make a home for yourself here. Although it's crazy, it's fun and wonderful in all its own ways.
Absolutely. It's an amazing city. It really is one of those incredible places. And you're right, you be careful. After 6 years, it's going to be hard to make a change. And you've established yourself so well, too, in ophthalmology, professionally, all of that. How's doing surgery on someone like Savannah Guthrie at the Today Show? Is it, and I understand she'd had a retinal detachment, which then after surgery led to unilateral cataract. Was that, high risk, high reward for sure, but you obviously had incredible results. She still talks about how amazing she sees out of that eye, but tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, you know, I'm so lucky. I think, you know, really having the support of my institution behind me was really wonderful, because I couldn't have done it without, you know, all the advanced technology that we offer, the amazing team of nurses, technicians, everybody who's a part of the team to make that happen in a reality. I think it's, you know, high stakes whenever we do surgery on somebody. And I'm sure there's listeners out there that have even done surgery on family members or friends. It always hits a little bit closer to home. I think for me, as soon as the drape goes down, it's the exact same surgery for me every single time. I always say, you know, I like to do things in a very kind of measured way when I'm doing surgery. I do things, I have my exact same morning routine, and everything goes the same way for me during that day. So stakes are high, but I think I have kind of like a plan around it that I can really get myself into the zone. I always jokingly say as well, you know, I play music during surgery, but I don't actually hear it when I'm operating. So I always just ask the nurses what they want to hear that day, because when I'm in the zone, again, I'm just in the zone and I don't really hear it. So it's all about like making my team happy. And then I just kind of get into exactly what mode I need to get into to get the job done.
That's really impressive and allows you to do that. And also even professionally, obviously the institution you're part of has certainly helped, but, you know, you've carried that yourself too, in so many ways of continuing to advance and to get there. Have you had mentors that have helped guide you? Is this just you've had this kind of aspirational ability, whether it was early in theatrical or even, which I think is a great background, by the way. It's almost ideal to have that because it helps you just be who you are and naturally come out. And you need that element to, if you want to do what you're doing, if you want to speak from the podium, if you want to educate and contribute in multiple ways. But what has that just always been your nature? Or is that like when you're up there speaking, is that kind of in the zone too?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's such a highlight of what I get to do, because when I do surgery and when I help people in my community in New York, I can affect change at kind of a community level where I am. But if I'm lecturing at the podium, presenting research, teaching other physicians and surgeons, then I can really enact change at more of a global level. And I think that's what makes it so exciting for me, that it's not just my own patients, it's, you know, spreading that energy and that information to help others as well. And that becomes such an important part of the job. So I really, truly enjoy doing that. But I think you're right, having that theater background, it gives me that almost that comfort doing it. Again, it's something that you do have to practice to kind of get good at doing it still. It doesn't just come naturally, but I really enjoy doing it. So I do seek out those opportunities.
That's wonderful. And it shows you just seem to be in a good zone when you're doing that too, and able to communicate. And you can tell when you're at the podium or writing that you're trying to contribute. You're trying to, how can I help others with what I have learned or what I've learned by mistakes or experience, and it carries well and very naturally. And so obviously with all those steps and so you did fellowship, and that was in cataract surgery. Is that right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, cataract, hernia, refractive.
Very nice timing on that as well. Is there one particular area you're more focused on amongst that, or is it?
Yeah, when I started my fellowship, I was like, I'm going to do the hardest cornea stuff that ever comes up. That's what I want to do. And at the end of my year fellowship, I was like, wow, that was a lot. I'm going to focus on cataract and refractive. So I put in my fair share of work, I felt like, during my fellowship. But I think that, you know, cataract refractive in its own right is becoming its own subspecialty within anterior segment. There's so much new technology that's come out even since the time that I finished my fellowship. I mean, I'd say 70% of what I'm doing currently, I learned after my fellowship, which was just 5 years ago. So the field of ophthalmology is consistently changing, and the technology that we're offering to our patients is changing as well. So you really have to stay abreast of that to be able to offer the best resources to your patients.
You're 100% right. The speed of innovation is incredible, and especially in that field. And I think we're only seeing it beginning. I mean, I think as we advance, there's going to be all kinds of other approaches to presbyopia correction in there. The whole idea of exchangeability, and adjustability, so much yet to come, and some here already, some advancing. You know, it's great to have people like you leading the way and staying on top and serving a good community around that. So like to be a New York Rangers ophthalmologist. They had a good run this year. They went all the way to the semifinals.
They did. I'd like to take as much credit for that as I'm allowed to, because I got to examine all of their eyes at the beginning of the season. Yeah, that's really fun. That opportunity was awarded to me from a colleague that was doing it previously. And he knew I was from Canada and a huge hockey fan. So he introduced me to some of the athletic trainers and the team. I shadowed him for about 2 years, and then the baton was passed. And it's such a wonderful opportunity to, again, get involved in the community. It really feels like then you have, a part to play in this crazy metropolis of New York City, but you have your little niche and your community within that. And again, as such a hockey fan, being from Canada, it's a total dream to be able to do that.
That's a really amazing. I'd envy you, and they're a good young team. You may be wearing a big ring down the road as things progress. Well, hopefully so. I'll be cheering you and them on to go along. So obviously you've carried things even further in the short 6-year time frame, even onto an entrepreneurial kind of aspect of trying to fill in a niche, something that also I obviously have a passion for. And I guess you're really the first. Normally, when you start thinking of skincare lines, you start thinking a lot about dermatologists and those kind of plastics involved in this. But you're right. We've kind of left out the whole around the eye, which is such a fundamental key component. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing there from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Then we'll get into kind of what you've learned in the process, and what things have really guided you to success.
Yeah, so it really came about because, I think as a young female myself, a lot of patients would ask me, well, what product should I be using around my eyes? So what makeup remover, what should I be doing to keep them hydrated? Why are my eyes red and irritated? And I think for a long time, dermatologists have been great about getting that message out about how to take care of your skin. I think dentists are great about getting the message out about how to take care of your teeth. You need to be brushing them twice a day to keep them healthy. And as ophthalmologists and eye care providers, we haven't really been as good about educating the public about eye care. And especially when it relates to skincare and cosmetic use around the eyes. I mean, when I talk a lot about dry eyes, similar to you, and one big portion of my dry eye talks that I give are about the use of cosmetics and how some of them can be damaging for the eyes, some topical retinols and other skin creams. So it really kind of started as something that patients were asking me about, and me not feeling comfortable being able to recommend anything that was currently on the market. So we had medical grade products, which were really good for those patients who truly have, say, blepharitis and a lot of scurf on the lids. We have cosmetic products that didn't really have the best ingredients, but people were using them as makeup removers and things like that. And there wasn't anything in the middle. There was nothing that was backed by science that medically I felt like had great ingredients, that cosmetically would be effective and also look beautiful on your shelf with all your other cosmetics. And they thought there was a real need for it. So about 2 years ago, I started my company. It's called Daily Practice. So it's to be a part of your daily practice to take care of your eyes, just like you take care of the rest of your body. And I really wanted to come up with a solution that could do all three things in one. So it could cleanse, hydrate, and remove makeup around the eyes. And so that's my first product. I worked with a lab here in the US. So they're in Minnesota. It's a certified organics lab. And I worked with a chemist, and we did back and forth about 15 revisions on the product and really came up with the final solution, which I'm calling Eye Revive. And then the goal is really to further expand the product offering. So to get into things like under eye creams, which are gentle for use around the eyes, and further products going along. And I don't want this to be something that's just, I put my name on that a lab had already created. This is not what's called private label, which is what happens, say, if a celebrity wants to create a skincare line, they put their name on something that's already created. That's not the case here. This was truly, from ingredients that I worked with a chemist who has a specialty in skincare and organic and natural ingredients to really come up with a novel solution.
Oh, that's fantastic. How many, I do see that in my clinic as well. And I get the question a lot too. What makeups, is this, can I go back to wearing makeup? Why does it irritate my eyes? Imagine that this isn't an area, and especially skincare around the eye, kind of your focus too, and removing of makeup probably isn't an area that we've had a lot of good, safe products for the eyes, I imagine. Is that the case? Because a lot of patients, if I look at my severe patient population, Sjogren's, otherwise, they just can't wear makeup anymore. They say it's just too irritating, too many problems. Is that just traditionally been the way? And why is it so much that way when it comes to around the eye?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's because there's just a lot of unknown. Like cosmetics and ophthalmology have been completely separate, I think, for our entire careers. And so I'm starting to think about this space where we combine cosmetics and ophthalmology in a really safe yet effective manner for our patients, because patients aren't going to stop using cosmetic products. People are always going to be concerned with the appearance of their eyes. I always say to my patients, our eyes are how we present ourselves to the world. It's like, looking into somebody else's eyes. It's a way that you really really get to learn about somebody and know about them. And patients are very concerned when their eyes look red or irritated, if the skin around their eyes looks dehydrated and with fine lines. So people are more and more concerned about the cosmetic appearance of their eyes. And so we need good medical ingredients for people that want to use skincare products around their eyes.
That's a great idea. It really is going to serve a huge need. Was it did it take a time intensive? Was there a lot of learning for this? Tell me a few of the steps and even some of the stumbles and what you learned along the way.
Oh yeah, so there were definitely a lot of stumbles. I always say I'm doctor first, entrepreneur second, but I'm learning. But I really think having that physician background has helped me to get to where I am today, because, there's nothing like being on call, multiple nights, not sleeping, still having to function. And again, this is a lot of hard work starting a company and to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. But I think having the background as a physician was extremely helpful in that. So I started this about 2 years ago. So it was right around the time that COVID had started. And I knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to make it a reality. So I remember kind of sitting down and Googling how to make a business plan. That was like my first step, because I really didn't even know what the first step should be. Again, I kept up saying to, friends and family that I would share this idea with. I was saying, I know what I want it to look like. I just don't know how to get it there. And so I think one thing that started to stand out to me was, one, educating myself about how you go about doing this. So truly, asking other founders and entrepreneurs, being in touch with people who have started their companies, and really just taking any advice that anybody gives you and then deciding if it works for you or not. So, taking any meeting that anybody offers, any quick phone call that they offer with the little pearls of advice for you about how to start. And I think that, again, is just something that was so helpful as I was getting started. But I've definitely made mistakes along the way. I think the biggest thing I will say is nobody cares about this as much as you do. And so for anybody that's starting their own venture, whether it be your own practice or, an invention that you have that you want to see to fruition, no one will care about this as much as you do, but you can find a good team that will care almost as much as you. And that may take a little bit of time and a little bit of trial and error. My other big piece of advice would be that it is very easy to spend money. And a lot of people will tell you to spend your money in a lot of ways. I am self-funded. So every penny that goes into this is out of my bank account, and you really start to realize where the spend becomes important, and really just learning not to beat yourself up over it. If you spend on something that you think was important at the time and it turns out not to be, learning from those mistakes and pivoting, and then just not making the same mistake twice.
Yeah, so much of success really is a little bit of failing forward. That, and there's books on that, but just it's going to happen. It's inevitable. Don't beat yourself up. Learn from it. Go to the next step, and stay nimble and keep on advancing. And it sounds like you've gotten there. And so the product is available now. Is it what stage are you at in terms of?
So it's available now. We launched last week. So really exciting. It's for sale on our website directly now, which is www.dailypractice.com. It's eventually going to be for sale on Amazon. And then we're also starting to sell out of doctors' offices, as well as online ophthalmology and optometry and other eye websites as well. So if you go to our website, there's lots of information about where you can purchase it. And then we're pretty active on social media. So you can find us on Instagram and even on TikTok. So if anybody is wanting to try it, please reach out. I'm so excited for you to try it, and I hope you love it as much as I do.
That is so awesome. I think you've done great. How hard is it to learn the social media? Or is that stuff that was kind of already pretty inherent as you were going along, or because it is so critical? And if you miss that component, you don't reach the level that you need to, and you're starting to look at consumers and those with interest. And was that, did you get help? Did you figure it out? Did most of this was stuff you just had to learn and then carry through?
Yeah, some of it was as what I had learned just personally, because I was fairly active on social media when I started my career, because I wanted to have a way to differentiate myself in New York City, but also that if patients Googled my name, that, I somewhat had control over the online image. And that was good advice that I had received from mentors in the field when I had started. If a patient's going to Google your name, you don't want your college photos coming up. You probably want like a more professional website, maybe a professional Instagram, Twitter handle, so that when somebody looks up your name, it's all, somewhat curated to what you would like to present to them as a physician. So I had a little bit of background in that already, but I've also hired a wonderful team that's helping me with that. So they're helping me with some of the published socials. And then I've been so lucky at the people in our eye care field. So there's a number of organizations that I've partnered with. We're starting to do things like Instagram giveaways, doing podcasts like this with you, which has been so wonderful to help get the word out there as well. I've been really, really blessed with how wonderful our community in eye care is, because I think a lot of people talk about raising each other up and helping to promote each other. And to meet people who truly do that is always just, completely wonderful to see when it comes to action like this.
That is great statement. I agree. That's really an amazing culture that's established in the eye care field, that, we're all trying to continue to do what we can to help our patients, to move each other forward, to work with industry, within ourselves, what we can do. And that's a great statement. A few people, I think, realize how unique that is amongst the medical professions that exist out there. And truly, it's nice to see that's happening.
It is true. And it all, like you said, it all comes down to the patient, right? Like the reason why I've created this is to provide skincare products for patients that are asking, and that that it's going to be something that's safe and effective for them to use, so that you no longer have to say, I don't know. You can say, actually, I have a website that you can go to where you can find these things. And as I was saying before, I'm self-funded at this stage, so it's a very slow rollout, but I hope to expand the product offering to get into other products soon. So stay tuned for more of that in the future.
And that's really, in this age, is so valuable for us, because this comes up all the time from patients, and they don't expect me, maybe as a male, that's why they don't expect me to have the answer, but they ask, and they ask the staff, and I don't have them all, but if I could point them to a website, that's such a great way to do it. And especially if it's a good product line and coming from you, I know it's going to be exceptional. Makes it easier for us practitioners as well to be aware and to know of all these things, and help our patients. And it's exciting. Any additional pearls of wisdom for those listeners who aspire to launch a product line or a startup like this that you would, and you gave a lot of them already, but any additional ones that you might say that might be worth them looking at and doing or considering, or things that surprised you as you went through this process?
Yeah, I think one piece of advice would be things are going to take a lot longer than you think they will. And that's just the nature of it. It's, high highs and low lows as you're going through this process, and just kind of ride the waves, because it will come back up, and there will be wins and there will be some losses along the way. But, if you truly believe in it and it's of service to people, then I think if you can ride those waves, it's just going to continue upwards from there. And the other thing that I would mention too is just, I think I said this before, no one will care about this as much as you do, but find a team that cares almost as much about this as you do. And if you surround yourself with good people with good intentions, then I think you'll do great things. I will say one thing that was really important to me as I was starting this is to have a lot of brand integrity. And I speak about that a lot with this company, because I really wanted to make sure that there was a lot of sustainability consideration. So that's important to me within the eye care space. Surgically, we produce so much waste with even, say, cataract surgery. And I'm really, passionate about sustainability in the OR. And so sustainability in this space was important to me as well. So all of the materials are post-consumer recycled materials. So the packaging for all of it. And then lastly, there's a give back campaign as well, so that a portion of proceeds for the product go to Foundations for Fighting Blindness. So again, you're not just helping yourself see better by buying the product, you're helping somebody else see better again too.
It's wonderful. Ashley, congratulations. I love the way that you're doing this, the approach you're doing it. I know it'll be a great success. It was an honor to get to take some time here and to allow our listeners to get to know who you are, your background, and what you're looking to do and what you're achieving. I think it's going to benefit a lot of people, especially patients, but in so many other aspects, including charities. The way that you're looking at the holistic approach to it and applying your energy, I know will make anything in this realm successful. So thank you for the time and your open sharing and the great background, which really helps us understand how people like you, and I'm always fascinated by people who can accomplish so much. And when I hear of their backgrounds, listen to the story, it all seems to come together so nicely. So well done. And thank you for all the time today.
No, and thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And for anybody listening, feel free to reach out to me at any time to discuss more.
Sounds good. We'll make sure we put in show notes and all of that, your website and how they can reach you, and anyone who wants to get in touch with you, how they're able to do so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the OIS Podcast. We appreciate it when you share these episodes with your friends and colleagues. If you have an interesting story to share with our audience, apply to be a guest at OIS.net. Be sure to listen in next week when we have Joe Boyd, Chief Commercial Officer of Avellino Lab.